Hello, YouTube. Baksan Gorge is one of the most famous gorges in the Caucasus. That would be in the Caucasus Mountains. There are many legends about these places, about those countless treasures of the Templars and even the Holy Grail are reported to be hidden somewhere in that area. At all times, travelers and tourists have sought to get to that area. It's very picturesque. But most of all, these places attract archaeologists and researchers with their ancient tombs and caves that you can find in many places of the Caucasus. The gorge is located in Kabardino-Balkaria. It is named after the Baksan River. There are historical sites in the vicinity of this beautiful landscape. Heroic battles took place here during the Great Patriotic War, as people refer to the World War II in the Soviet Union and Russia nowadays. There are 3 peaks near the village of Zayukovo. Zayuko, the height is 1,401 meters, Hara-Hora, 1,233 meters, and Mathuka, that's 1,071 meters. There's a version that earlier there were several small villages here, which now form this village, whatever was left of them. It is said that the prince from the Atazuhin family founded this village because somewhere here there was a treasure of the 17th century left by the previous owners of these lands, the Princess Shegemokov. The search for this treasure was long, but the treasure was never found. Legend has it that this princess possessed some unusual object that endowed their warriors with supernatural power, but they carefully hid this object from the prying eyes in the cave of the Baksan Gorge. In addition to this mysterious object, the princess kept their treasures there. And when people hear treasures, they try to find them, especially if they're mysterious treasures. There are also catacomb burials in that area. This brings to this area the so-called outlaw diggers, or what's the right word? Illicit archaeologists, so to say, who destroy ancient graves and take the discovered or found ancient artifacts with them because there is a big black market for them, and they leave the country and find their place among private collections worldwide. Once, ages ago, this was the territory of the Scythians. Later, the Alans lived here. And in 1943, German Nazis rushed to get to this area. Hitler wanted to deprive the USSR of one of the main sources of oil, but at the same time, he was still interested in something else in this place. Therefore, the Ahnenerbe units were located in the area, engaged in the search for the ancestral heritage and ancient artifacts. Ahnenerbe was a very complicated Nazi organization to look for the past Aryan treasure, so to say, and artifacts. And I mentioned it in my other videos. Presumably, they were going to find the entrance to Shambhala, or at least they wanted to find the Grail itself. For Hitler, the Caucasus was generally a place of power, but he was not the only one interested in this place. These places were also of great interest to the Soviet special services, secret police. The NKVD, which was the precursor to KGB, had its own expeditions and operations in the area, which reportedly were based on some esoteric interest. I would say in the 1930s, but not after 1938, because the department that was very much interested in esoteric sciences and research was annihilated by Stalin in one of the bloody purges. Anyway, an expedition was being planned to the Baksan Gorge by this special department, but it didn't work out. But something unimaginable happened to the Germans in these places, reportedly. And I will elaborate later, but some time ago, one climber, and again, I will tell you more about him, discovered several frozen bodies of German servicemen who had been lying there since the war. These bodies were buried under a layer of ice, and there were no visible signs of wounds on them. There were no weapons near them. It looked as if they had not died in battle from wounds. It became clear from the equipment that these Germans belonged to the ranger units. They were looking for something, but they fell victim to some strange accident. And the strangest thing is that they were not even buried by their own, the bodies were left behind. Maybe something happened to these Germans that really scared the others. We do not know if they managed to find anything in these caves, but it is obvious that they found their death there. It is believed that the entrance to Shambhala is located on or near Mount Kailas. But there is a belief also that the Caucasus also had one of the entrances to this mysterious country. Maybe that's why Ahnenerbe was trying to get there, and the dream of owning Shambhala haunted the higher ranks of the Third Reich. You know, they had lurid minds, so why not? In the Caucasus, in particular in Adygea, there are a large number of dolmens, megalithic structures. It is believed that these are Neolithic burials. However, they are located at strategically important points and have holes that can be used as loopholes. In addition, the Caucasus is famous for a large number of people who live very long lives. This information served as a basis for the theory of the German archaeologist Herbert Jankunn that the Caucasus Mountains became one of the havens of the Atlanteans. The Germans were also attracted by the local hardy breed of red horses, reportedly. It was believed that similar horses were in Atlantis. How they would know, I'm not sure, but you know, you have this occult and all other stuff flying around, especially in 1920s, 1930s. Hitler and his entourage believed in their own theories so much that they probably expected not only to find ancient secrets there, but also to get in touch with a higher mind, higher intelligence, get invincible weapons, and take over the world. According to another account, the Germans were looking for an ancient underground city here in that area. Several such cities have already been discovered, reportedly. If they mean Turkey and underground caves, yes. I don't know what other cities there are. They are a network of tunnels connected to each other with a length of tens and hundreds of kilometers. Such cities were found in Turkey, Iran, Scotland, etc. That's what at least this account cites. The Germans settled in Zayukovo village during the war and went somewhere every day in the morning and returned in the evening. Whether they managed to find what they were looking for in that area is unknown. Now, this was one account, so to say, one background information, and believe me, it's not easy to find it scattered in a number of sources, and we're talking about open sources. But now let me briefly describe the investigation of the Russian newspaper Komsomolskaya Pravda. I sometimes refer to its investigative reporting. I do not share their political views, but they have serious reporting when it comes to paranormal aspects of Russian history. Vladimir Putin's favorite newspaper, by the way. In the Komsomolskaya Pravda weekly edition for June 17, 2015, Komsomolskaya Pravda told about the upcoming research in the Elbrus region. According to local residents, up to 200 bodies of German mountain riflemen rangers, let's call it riflemen, were buried there under an avalanche. The research was led by local historian Viktor Kotlyarov. So he says that he assembled an expedition, but the attempt to solve the mystery began with a tragedy. One of the participants of the expedition was a local Kabardian, what they call stalker, but somebody who is interested in searching for the unusual, going to very different places where he has adventures and so forth. His name was Artur Zayukovo. Artur and Kotlyarov have been searching together for several years for traces of the German organization Ahnenerbe, Ancestral Heritage, which was engaged in the occult. Members of this organization have equipped several expeditions to that region, where the Baksan Gorges. They were looking for mystical artifacts. Frozen rangers may turn out to be representatives of the Ahnenerbe. It was Artur who first discovered a 78-meter deep cave in the Hora mountain range, where, according to their data, a classified German unit was quartered, looking for something in the mountains of the Elbrus region. But he not only discovered it, but he also repeatedly descended into that cave. He was sure that there was a whole underground city below, the tunnels from which stretched all the way to Elbrus and further into Transcaucasia. Local residents claim that hay was delivered from the Caucasus Gorge to Baksan through tunnels even before the war on mule-drawn carts. Artur Zayukovo was going to take part in a campaign to take place where a company of Nazis were frozen in ice. But the other day he was found dead on the road. According to investigators, Artur was hit by a car at night. However, friends and family believe that the death of the researcher was not an accident. And recently he had complained more than once. Some unknown people threatened him and demand that he stop the research. That's what Kotlyarov claims. Apparently, Artur got to something after all. Shortly before his death, he informed Kotlyarov on the phone that he was close to a sensational discovery. But he would tell about this only during a face-to-face meeting. Apparently, the information was really explosive. A strange death. According to his brother, on his last day of life, Artur was incredibly excited. He walked around rubbing his hands. Without the explanation, he decided to go to Nalchik, a city there. And suddenly, quite unexpectedly, he asked friends who gave him a ride by car to stop at the so-called Baksan Circle at the fork in the road leading to Elbrus region, Petygorsk, Nalchik. Despite the persuasions of his companions, at midnight he got out of the car and headed towards one of the places from where he was counting down his research. Why did he go there? Because they worked out this location a long time ago, asked Kotlyarov. Why should he go there at night? Besides, it is difficult to make these observations alone. An assistant is needed. So Kotlyarov had many questions about the death of his comrade. And finally, the fourth and most important thing, why did he need to cross the highway? Because the desired point is located exactly on the side he was walking on. Artur was found a meter from the side tracks, a meter away. The friends intended to conduct their own investigation into the causes of the researcher's death. Well, diplomats became interested in those Germans frozen in ice. Immediately after the publication that I mentioned in Komsomolskaya Pravda, Kotlyarov was approached by diplomats from the representative office of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Russia in the city of Mineralные Vody. They offered cooperation, in particular the involvement of the German side to organize a joint expedition. Representatives of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs proposed to act together so that it would be possible to attribute all the existing soldiers' tokens and those that are still to be found. That's what Kotlyarov said to the newspaper. They wanted to contact the German consulate or the German foreign ministry. And already there, the work would go further along the chain. But the Ministry of Foreign Affairs was waiting for him to take photos and the exact coordinates of the place. After all, to get money for the expedition, you need ironclad evidence. The local historian, Kotlyarov himself, knows approximately where the pass is located. He only doesn't have the exact coordinates of the mass grave. But the researcher and his companions hoped to find this place. So the other day, Viktor Kotlyarov embarked on a research expedition. He was going to tell Komsomolka, as we call Komsomolskaya Pravda in short, about the results of the campaign. Well, later that year, the newspaper published an update, 2015. I recall that this outlaw diggers, illicit archaeologists, came across a detachment of Nazis buried under the ice. They showed photos of the finds to local historian, member of the Geographical Society, Viktor Kotlyarov. So he organized an expedition to the Elbrus region. The expedition moved out in mid-July 2015. However, heavy rains began in the mountains. It is extremely dangerous to conduct search in such conditions. But even after the end of the week of heavy rains, it was not possible to approach the approximate burial site. The mountains were still frozen and covered with snow. In order not to waste time, the members of the expedition explored the area around and came across amazing artifacts. A briefcase with bones and skull of strange origin and a ring. The suitcase, quite roomy, brown in color, with leather handle and the emblem of the Ahnenerbe Society on the lid. It was found in a cave. That's what Kotlyarov described. Earlier, one of the residents of the local settlement of Zayukovo told them, during the war, Germans lived in her parents' house. So one of the officers was constantly walking around with a brown briefcase. The Nazis protected him like the apple of their eye, never parted with him. It seems that such briefcases were supplied to members of the secret organization Ahnenerbe. There were also other Nazi units searching in the mountains. Inside the found suitcase, Russian expedition members found a skull and bones belonging. They couldn't identify who it belonged to. It is clear that this is not a person, argued Kotlyarov, but they can hardly belong to an animal either. He showed remains to a local expert. He could not give a definite answer who it was. These creatures have two branches on their heads and as if there were horns. The skulls have huge eye sockets, the two holes for the nose but no mouth. Everyone who has seen them suggests they were aliens. Although this account has not been confirmed so far, oddly enough, it remains the main one. The ring, presumably belonging to the ranger from the Edelweiss division, was not their find, so not the Kotlerov's people. It was shown to them by the same guys who discovered the frozen company last year, explained Kotlerov. They say that they found it there in the burial. They cannot prove unequivocally that he is related, this is related to the frozen company yet. But besides this ring, the illegitimate diggers, outlaw archaeologists who sell their loot, it turns out also have a full set of German uniforms. They say they found a whole dugout in the mountains, and they even showed it on the telephone. It's a German SS uniform. Or maybe they should already dig up the place where, in their opinion, the frozen company is located. That's what the newspaper asked Kotlerov. And he said it's not possible yet. A lot of snow fell that winter, and in the gorge they are interested in, it is not yet melted. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack. The snow will go away at best in late August or early September. It is only during the period when the ice is exposed that it is possible to penetrate the mystery of the frozen battalion. Let's wait. He hoped that his patience would be rewarded. The newspaper investigative reporters showed the photos of the finds in the mountains to Konstantin Zalesky, a historian of the Third Reich, writer and publicist. The team of Herbert Jankunn, who was an archaeologist, historian, and professor well known in Germany at that time, really operated in that area. And they were sent by Ahnenerbe. That's what Zalesky told the reporters from Komsomolskaya Pravda. They were in Crimea first, and then they got to the Caucasus. There is documentary evidence of this. It was guarded by SS combat units. The team was exclusively engaged in the search and looting of archaeological artifacts. The Ahnenerbe Society was created primarily to find the roots of the German people. And at the beginning of the war, Jankunn's team was sent to the south of the Soviet Union to search for archaeological artifacts that would help to understand the Goths, first of all. According to one of their theories, these are the tribes related to the Germans. That is, according to the Nazi version, tribes related to the Aryans lived in the Caucasus, which means that these are native German lands. The skulls can be attributed to the archaeological artifacts that Ahnenerbe was hunting for and which were supposed to be exported to Germany. And the frozen company, perhaps these were those who accompanied the Ahnenerbe searchers. So, Komsomolskaya Pravda reporters showed photos of the skull to an anthropologist, senior researcher, and the Institute of Archaeology and Ethnography of the Siberian branch of the Russian Academy of Sciences, paleontologist Nikolai Ovodov. Perhaps this is a ram's skull, Nikolai Ovodov expressed his opinion. The skull most likely was for some time in a stream of water with sand and pebbles and deformed over the years. He does not rule out that the Nazis might have mistaken the skull for something mystical, even alien. Usually, searchers don't know much about bones, turtles, and even more so, they do not conduct an examination of the finds. Scientists do it. By the way, let me add something. I read later it was determined that the skull was that of a mountain sheep. So we'll put that at rest and let's not blame poor aliens for what happened out there. Now, according to some information, Tibetan monks were in the area with the Germans, allegedly together with the SS officers. They began climbing to the top. It seems that they were even observed by local shepherds grazing cattle on the mountainside. The participants of that climb, of the ascent, did not return. Many years later, it turned out that they were caught in an avalanche. The find was named Frozen SS Division. But now a little bit more about that perished researcher, because information comes from all sources. So that independent field researcher managed to find something very interesting in these places. His name was Artur Zhemukhov. He passed away early, just on the threshold of some important discovery. Arthur discovered that cave in 2011, according to this account. He was looking for underground passages there that can reach the foot of Elbrus and beyond. The researcher has been looking for many years, and he succeeded, albeit by accident. This cave, it was covered by a stone that had fallen from somewhere above. The man somehow felt that there might be a hole under the stone, and indeed there was rather narrow passage under the stone, the depth of which was 7 meters. It looked like this shaft, whatever, it looked like it was man-made. It was like a passage from it to another mine, larger and going 16 meters deep. Then there is a 10-meter deep mine, and at the end, a huge chamber with a ceiling height of 36 meters. One of its walls was lined with stone blocks. The wall and the vault are polished. In the center of that chamber, a huge stone hovered, stuck between the walls. How it got there is unknown. Well, researchers believe that this dungeon is at least 4,000 years old. That is, it may well be the same age as the Egyptian pyramids. It is believed that somewhere under the Sphinx there's a hole of knowledge, and the locals have a legend that somewhere in that cave there's an underground city with its own hole of knowledge. Artur Zayukovo believed in this legend, and unfortunately he did not have time to complete his research. But what he found is already worth a lot. Who knows, maybe this is the very entrance to Shambhala that the Germans were looking for, or maybe it's just part of the ventilation system of the underground city. Those are the questions that are coming up. The researchers have not yet been able to penetrate further. Now, we're speaking now of 2024. Since the entire object location ends with a narrow loopholes into which it is impossible for a person to squeeze through. There is a legend that after the abolition of the Templar order by the Pope, the Templars reached the Caucasus Mountains, bringing with them the Holy Grail and other valuables. They hid everything in the labyrinths of caves. Since then, everyone has tried to find the treasure. It was not possible as yet to find the treasures in the cave of Zayukovo. But who knows, maybe someone else found them earlier, or maybe it's just a beautiful legend, which there are many throughout the world near mysterious places. But the newspaper said that the search for the city and treasure continues anyway. Unless somebody has money, private investor, who is interested, I highly doubt that the Russian government will give 1 kopeck, 1 penny, to continue this research, especially nowadays. But I want to tell you more about Kotlyarov in general, and then I'll give you an update from 2024. You see, Kotlyarov principal position in the protection and preservation of Russia's cultural heritage was manifested in purposeful work to prevent the looting and destruction of ancient monuments, Cimmerian and Scythian burial grounds, and menhirs. A menhir is a standing stone. It's a large upright stone emplaced in the ground by humans, typically dating from the European Middle Bronze Age. They can be found individually as monoliths or as part of a group of similar stones. Menhir size can vary considerably, but they often taper towards the top. Artur, after Kotlyarov learned that a menhir had been destroyed in the Elbrus region, he wrote a number of materials that were published and republished by dozens of internet sites. The author appealed to the Prosecutor General of Russia, after which a criminal case was opened on the destruction of the monuments from antiquity, from the past. Kotlyarov initiated the reconstruction of the monument. It was carried out jointly with the Pyatigorsk local historians, and in the place where the original menhir had previously stood, its modern twin was installed, completely repeating the original. Not content with the replies received from the Ministry of Culture of Kabardino-Balkaria, Kotlyarov continued to draw public attention to the topic raised by publishing new materials. The staff of the State Historical Museum was informed about what was happening. After seeing the artifacts collected by Kotlyarov, they were abandoned by those outlaw archaeologists, mainly because of the non-marketable appearance. They sent their experts to the Republic, who accepted the found objects and described them. Kotlyarov personally participated in the collection and preservation of artifacts, which he donated to the museum. Despite the numerous threats coming from individuals who have built their businesses on the plundering of cultural heritage of the state, that reminds me of Yucatan so much. Despite the lack of all possible assistance and attention from the agencies responsible for this very preservation, Kotlyarov continues to introduce more and more archaeological sites into scientific circulation, drawing public attention to their protection and making sure that the true history of the Caucasus is preserved. He's a brave guy. One day I'll tell you about an island in the Black Sea, Ukrainian island I visited as a kid and what I saw there. But anyway, it's one of the strangest places and very unusual. Well, one of the top archaeologists there, he was murdered by those outlaw diggers, archaeologists, smugglers, you call them whatever you want, in 2005. They hunted him down. So I think Kotlyarov is a very brave person. Now from March 2024. One of the pages of the history of the Great Patriotic War on the territory of Kabardino-Balkaria was personally opened, I should say discovered by Kotlyarov. This is a story about a German airfield in the northern Elbrus region. It has connection to what I was telling you before, so listen please. Shepherds who grazed cattle in the mountains told him that German planes landed there during the Great Patriotic War. They had heard about it from older people. According to them, for a long time after the war, certain attributes of the airfield remained on the plateau, in particular iron masts, but then they were removed and thrown out, the local historian Kotlyarov told Russian newspaper. Hitler, who was inclined to mysticism, had some special interest in the Elbrus. French writer and journalists Louis Pauwels and Jacques Bourgier wrote about this in the book Morning of the Magicians. According to their account, German Nazism was based on many mystical theories. According to one of them, Hitler believed that Mount Elbrus was the ancestral home of the Aryan race, a magical peak. The capture of Elbrus, the Führer believed, would guarantee victory for the Germans. When the troops captured the Caucasus, 3 SS climbers, they climbed to the top of Elbrus. They planted a swastika banner there. The raising of the banner at the top of Elbrus was supposed to mark the beginning of their victory. Kotlyarov quoted from the book by the French authors. The hoisting of the Nazi flag over Elbrus took place in August 1942, but already in January 1943, the Germans were driven out of the Elbrus region, and Soviet soldiers dropped the swastika flag. Shepherds also told Kotlyarov that the Germans once brought men in women's clothing to the airfield who were shot there. Kotlyarov suggests that they are probably talking about Tibetan lamas. They should have predicted the outcome of the war, probably having heard the unfavorable prognosis from the Tibetans. Germans executed the llamas. That's according to the shepherds. A swastika made of stones was laid out at the place of execution of the llamas. However, attempts to find that place were unsuccessful. According to Kotlerov, when he made the first publications about the German airfield in the northern Elbrus region, skeptics made fun of him. What kind of airfield could there be in the mountains or rough terrain? Meanwhile, historian Oleg Aprishko, author of the book In the Elbrus Direction, discovered an intelligence report dated August 29, 1942, from the headquarters of the 2nd Infantry Division in the archive of the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation in the city of Podolsk. It read, the landing site in the Elbrus region is used by the Germans for Focke-Wulf aircraft, which, according to residents, make daily landings. The so-called airfield itself is a natural plateau 1,800 meters long and 800 meters wide. The local historian wrote about this history in his books, What the Nazis Were Looking For in the Mountains of Kabardino-Balkaria, and in the role of Hunters of Secrets, Ahnenerbe. Talking about Kotlerov, those are his books. Based on these works, the central channels of Russian television have filmed a number of programs, and the Zvezda and Kultura TV channels have made documentaries. The most famous, The Secret of the German Airfield, opened the veil of obscurity over what representatives of the German mystical organization Ahnenerbe were looking for on the territory of Kabardino-Balkaria. The story of the llamas got an unexpected sequel. A few years ago, Kotlerov received a call and was told that a delegation of llamas was going to arrive in the Elbrus region. They wanted to offer a prayer for peace there. The delegation was headed by the Supreme Oracle of Tibet. Kotlerov met with him. He asked him a question about llamas brought by the Nazis to the Elbrus region. Could it have been like that? He did not answer yes or no. As to the Kotlerov's work today, there is a small office on Kabardinska Street in the center of the city of Nalchik. The Kotlerov publishing house is located there, where Viktor Nikolaevich Kotlerov and his wife Maria write, edit, and publish books. According to the Association of Book Publishers of Russia, Kotlerov's books have been repeatedly recognized as the best in various nominations. Among Kotlerov's publications, which are hundreds of folios, books about Kabardino-Balkaria occupy a special place. It turned out that everyone who is interested in Kabardino-Balkaria studies it mainly from his books. There just weren't any others, according to Kotlerov. And in April, for example, of 2024, the publishing house released 4 books at once. The Kotlerovs have been accumulating materials for them for the last 5 years. The books contain various stories from the past, showing the spiritual world and mental attitudes of Kabardinians and Balkars. The Museum of Stones is located right next to the walls of the publishing house. Rounded stones of large size, fossilized ammonite mollusks, a stone tree, a huge meteorite. In one of the stones, either the paw of a dinosaur or the spine of some ancient animal was frozen. There's a continuation of the Museum of Stones nearby in the room. There are already smaller exhibits there, as well as various artifacts from the local historian Kotlerov found during his numerous trips around Kabardino-Balkaria. There were also difficult moments in Kotlerov's creative activity. A few years ago, one of the local nationalists attacked the local historian with accusation of bias and distortion of history. Kotlerov had to go to court to protect his honor and dignity. He won the court case, but the sediment, as they say, remained. Fortunately, most people understand and appreciate what they do, according to local historian Kotlerov. Now, I want to tell you something else. if you look at my research about the so-called swimmers, Lake Baikal, unusual tall humanoids, one of my sources was, later sources, was Mikhail Demidенko. He was the Soviet writer, wonderful novels. He was an interpreter and translator of Chinese language to the high Soviet officials, armed forces, I think in 1950s. And he investigated Nazis in the Caucasus because as a child, he was under the Nazi occupation. He had seen a few things. He would confirm what Kotlerov said, but from his own angle. He had a wonderful book about Nazis, again, in that area, and he knew quite a lot. So this is what I wanted to add. He passed away in 2003. Again, he was a wonderful human being. He was not afraid, and he was very inquisitive. And I will continue telling you about my research and the information I got from Demidенko. We used to correspond, and he sent information about Nazi atrocities towards Jewish population in the area and more, many years ago. And like I said, he knew a lot. So when you have people like him and Kotlerov, or had people like him and have Kotlerov, it's easier to find out information because the government is not going to do anything. It's up to local people like that to dare and to search. I think we'll find out more about this frozen Nazis and their stalking around the Caucasus, looking for the confirmation of their lurid ideas. When there is an expedition into that deep cave, maybe someday it will take place. It's the Caucasus is a very interesting area, and you can find out more about its paranormal and just very strange historical background in my videos. Look through my channel, through the channel, to the playlists. That's what I wanted to let you know today. I appreciate your attention to my work. If you can support my research, please do so in the links you'll find in the description to this channel. Please like my videos. Please subscribe to my channel.